Alrighty, joining us now is a man who has a resume that includes an AFL player, a college punter, the winner of the highest individual award that a college punter can win, a Denver Bronco, a podcaster, USFL punter, a coach, and being involved with an online stash with the one and only Pat McAfee. Graduate assistant at the Murray State Races, Max Duffy. How are you, mate?
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. It's a less impressive list than probably what it sounds. I wasn't too good at most of them, to be honest. So,
mate, it's that's the longest introduction I've ever had to do. So,
did we miss any?
Probably record for shortest time ever spent on an AFL field when I was the sub against Hawthorn. I think I had like 28 seconds.
Beautiful.
So
that's 28 seconds more than I've played. So
that's probably the best one.
Nah, beautiful. We always like to start off with just to get an idea of who we're talking to. You know, we haven't met you besides right now, so I'd like to start off with three people that you'd have at a dinner party, just to kind of gauge what kind of person we're talking to.
Three people I'd have at a dinner party. That's interesting. I'm single at the moment, so maybe if I could invite three ladies, that would be nice, and maybe just have a bit of a bachelor type scenario.
That's possibly the best answer I've heard.
Yeah, I think that's the best one. Just plenty of wine and some good guests, and see where the night goes. Otherwise, I would say, I don't know. Actually, I'd probably bring back some blasts from the past and see what kind of people they're like. Like I'd bring back maybe a historical figure of some sort and just see what they had to offer. Maybe a Caesar or something like that. Right. I'd probably go with my dad because I haven't seen him in about 3.5 years, and my brother. My sisters and mum probably too annoying for a dinner chat, to be honest. So just the boys.
Yeah, you said three ladies. We don't have to include mum and your sister in that one.
Yeah, no, they can stay out of that one.
Nah, fair. Julius Caesar's an interesting one.
Yeah, Emperor of Rome. I think that'd be a good conversation, wouldn't it? I'd have plenty of questions.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's definitely outside the realm of what most people go for, so I enjoy that one. That's cool. Now, you said that, or you didn't say, you doing all the research that I've done on you in the last few days, you're a Perth lad.
Yep.
How was life growing up on the west coast of Perth?
Fantastic. Honestly, I've travelled around everywhere, or almost everywhere, I feel like, in doing all the things that I've done, and still the greatest place on earth. I even lived in Melbourne for a year, and it's not even close. Perth's got it hands down. So I loved it. I love being from WA. Obviously, most isolated city in the world. So maybe we're a little bit insulated, but I loved it. Loved the beach. Loved the weather. The people were awesome. Playing footy for the black and gold Swan was a highlight, and playing basketball for the state, all that kind of thing. I definitely, the WA's home for me, and it always will be. So loved every minute of it, and hopefully at some stage I'll be back.
You said you love the beach. Are you a surfing kind, or?
I was about 13 years old and fell off the back of a surfboard, and it hit me right in between the eyes, the fin did, and I came out of the water bleeding. And I'm not the toughest guy of all time. I just gave up at that point. So
that's enough. I've had a crack. That's enough.
Yeah, I've had a crack, and I think the sharks in Western Australia right now would be a no-go for me. I don't really fancy myself in a swimming contest against one of them, so I'll just stay out of the water.
I don't know if it would.
Nah, beautiful. And you mentioned that you played basketball. I see. Did you play soccer as well early on in life?
Yeah, I played soccer for most of my life growing up. I don't know what you boys think, but growing up, when you can't tackle in AFL, not that my AFL career suggested I ever did start tackling, but when you can't tackle, there's really not a whole lot. Like, you're kind of constricted into the zones and all those kind of things. So loved just being able to run around, kick a soccer ball. And then basketball was really my main love growing up till I was about 16. I just loved it. All my friends played it. I think I was decent at it for a Western Australian standard. played, state basketball and those kind of things, and really missing out as a bottom major in the under 18s basketball kind of answered the decision for me if I had to stick with footy, because basketball coach was basically telling me I wasn't good enough. So made the decision pretty easy for me, and I'm kind of glad in some ways that that's worked out because of all the things that it's led to.
Yeah, so you touched on my next point, which was when did you decide that the AFL was the track that you wanted to go down? But did you play state AFL?
Yeah, I did. So I kind of was tossing up between the two. I played state 16s football and basketball. Thought I did fairly decent at both, and kind of, have to make a decision. I made the Australian AIS team for football as well, but just didn't really know a lot of football people. Didn't really care that much about it. Just really liked playing basketball with all my buddies. And like I said, I mean, it's not that he was wrong, but Mike Ellis decided that I wasn't quite good enough as a bottom major for the under 18 state team, and he was a Perth Wildcat legend. And so honestly, that was just kind of the point where I was like, I'm 6 foot tall at best, and can't jump, can't shoot a three. I'm kind of just relying on the fact that no one else in Australia is that great right now. So maybe I should swap to AFL, where I made the best 40 or whatever it was in the AIS as a bottom age person. So the career path kind of lured me into that, and then just made my decision from there. Just wanted to play football and give it a crack. Again, without really knowing a whole lot about the system and what was going into it, I kind of just kept by chance falling into these teams.
So you must have been all right, though, to play 2 years for East Freo and the Waffle, and then go on to get drafted number 39 by Freo.
I guess you could probably make that argument. Yeah, I was okay. I thought I was really, really good when I was younger, and then I kind of went through a few things when I was 18. I actually missed the first year of my draft year. I'm not sure I was that great, to be honest. And then I kind of, as you grow up and realize what's important and what's worth achieving, and you stop being a kid that just wants to go out and get drunk every single night and have fun with your buddies, and you realize there's probably a little bit more to life, although I'm still not sure there is. You kind of, things become more serious. You want to work really hard at things, and I put my head down, ass up, went to East Fremantle, got a spot in the senior team there when I was 19, and played some good football, really started enjoying it. Had a great time with Steve Malaxis, who was my coach, a former Eagles captain, West Coast Eagles captain, and he really brought the joy back in football that I didn't have the year before. And again, no idea about the way that the football really worked. I knew there was a draft, but I just didn't have any buddies that were interested. Even when I was playing at East Fremantle, no one, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, no one gave a shit.
Yeah. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah, no one cared. So for me, it was I'm doing all these things on a weekend playing for East Fremantle as a young guy, but whenever I'd see my buddies, they're talking about LeBron James or Steve Nash or anything like that, which is definitely a better subject than East Fremantle football, but they didn't even really know what was going on. So for me, just a bit of a whirlwind, and then lucky enough to get drafted by Fremantle, pick 39 and stay in my home state. So it was good.
And Freo were relatively successful at the time, which could be fortunate or unfortunate for you. So it was a bit of a struggle to break into the side after you were drafted.
Yeah, just a little bit. As you can see by the 3 games. I always think it's a little bit of both. And honestly, looking back now, it's the best thing that could possibly happen to me. But at the time, obviously, Ross Lyon had taken a big interest in me personally, honestly, because just from the chat since I'd been drafted, he kind of had said I was the one that said, we want you. Now, he obviously decided he was wrong 3 years later, but to get drafted to a team like Fremantle was awesome. Stay in my home state, do all those kind of things was great. You kind of look at someone maybe that got drafted and went to, North Melbourne, or I can't remember who were the teams down the bottom at that stage, and maybe those guys are still playing, and it's well, if I wasn't behind Walters, De Boer, Main, Pavlich, those, all the guys that were outstanding, then maybe I could have just been gifted 20 or 50 games to get better and have a crack. We went 3 years in a row, basically minor premiers. And Ross at the time, although I think he's changed a little bit, which I wish he had it back then, was just all about the older guys. Like, not a lot of young guys were getting a gig. I don't even know if there's one guy from my draft class still there. Now, I know I'm a bit older now, but I think that we were all delisted after 3 or 4 years. Like, it was just one of those things that get drafted and doesn't quite work out for whatever reason, even though you're trying your best. But now I look back and I don't wish for anything different in terms of all the life lessons that he taught us as a group, but obviously personally, all the key cornerstones of being an elite athlete, being a good person, and just getting the most out of yourself. Like, it took a while for him to sink in when I was first there, but now looking back, I couldn't have done the things that I've done without his lessons and like what his teachings are. And I mean, I don't think I'm the only guy that says it. I know the media bashes him a little bit, but it was just awesome to have him as a coach. And like, you just love him as a coach for all the things that he does. And that's why he gets the best out of all the people play for him. He's had so much success. He just teaches you how to be an elite athlete and to be a hardworking individual.
Sounds like you got heaps out of your journey. When you finished up with Freo, was there still more interest to play AFL, or were you looking elsewhere?
There was a little bit. I remember there was somewhat of a decision, well, I thought there was, for myself to maybe end up at the Bulldogs. And they obviously decided to go elsewhere, which was fine. They won the grand final the next year, so I was very jealous. But no, not really. I went back to West Perth in the Waffle, played a year of semi-professional, and honestly, I was getting a little bit chubby. There wasn't a lot of drive to keep playing that year. I just had kind of, you get the disappointment of missing out and getting delisted, and there's all your dreams getting shattered, and you're just kind of going through the motions a little. And then I decided at the end of that first year of Waffle, or being back in the Waffle, that I was like, nah, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm going back to the AFL. I'm going to get rock hard fit, play really well, dedicate everything to it, or I've got to find another career path. Because my friend Craig Moller, that was at Fremantle with me at the time, moved straight on to the NBL with the Sydney Kings. And if that useless 7-foot guy can get back into professional sport, then I was going to do it. So Craig, he fired me up a little bit, and I decided I wanted to do something elite. So I had to do something, and I managed to find punting, and had a big decision to make, and said, no, let's go do it. Let's go to America and try my hand at that.
Were you a raking, did you have a big kick when you were playing AFL, or did you just kind of develop that as you're punting along?
I wouldn't say like I was a massive, massive kick on the run. I think what suited me was I like to just kick off 1 or 2 steps, like a little bit like Suckling or like Stewie Jew, like round the corner, like high kick kind of thing, which has kind of had me in many debates over how to kick a football. Obviously since I've been here, but also just back in Australia with our punting coach, like I do kick around the corner just a little bit. But I think it helps in terms of punting is off 2 steps most of the time, or 3 or 4 if you're rolling out. So lots of my kicking was just done standing still or off a step. So that kind of held me in good stead that it wasn't a big transition to go back to that. Obviously in the AFL, we very rarely kick like that, but I like to be, the guy that kicked out from fullback off 1 step or something like that. And it kind of set me up to already have those skills punting wise.
Yeah, so straight after the AFL, your pro kick journey pretty much rolled straight into that. Was that right? You moved over to Melbourne?
Yeah, so like I said, had a decision to make between playing semi-professional or taking this chance. And at the time, I thought he was a little bit crazy, Nathan, when he said to me, like, mate, this isn't, I can do it part-time thing. It's you move over to Melbourne and let's get going and take it seriously. And I wanted to make sure he was right. So I flew over to Melbourne for a week, hung out with him, and went to a few training sessions and had to make a decision, and then just decided, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. Looked into it, did all the research, saw all the guys he'd sent over, saw the success that he'd had, watched American sports growing up, knew I wanted to be a part of all that. Wasn't sure what was going to actually get offered and whether it was even going to work out. But as I said, Ross, big big, motivational speech of take the emotional risk and go try something, go, do something that's special and not many guys are able to do, and decided this was the pathway. Don't worry about leaving family and friends and all that. Let's just go get after it and see what happens.
So looking back on it now, it is relatively small, but like you said, moving over to Melbourne, once you're leading up to that decision, obviously once you made that decision, it was pretty clear cut you wanted to go. But was there some difficulties in choosing to head over?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you leave in family, your best friends. You've only lived in, like I said, the most isolated city in the world.
Isolated
your whole life. You've got grandparents. I had one grandparent at the time, but they're getting old. All your mates are telling you you're an idiot because they, doing whatever they're doing. No disrespect to any other employment, but they're just, they're happier in their lives, and maybe they've already married or got kids or whatever it is. And why would you want to go do that? And even parents, sometimes it's like, Max, we'd rather you stay here and all that. So it's a big decision to make. And I've always said, I feel very selfish most of the time about the things that I choose to pursue, because it means that a lot of people get put out. A lot of people get their birthdays missed that are important, or maybe, I've missed two of now he's been unsuccessful through the first one, but I've missed two of my brother's weddings. He went for a repeat to give me a second chance, and I still missed it again. So missed two of his weddings. I missed the birth of his child and haven't been able to meet his child yet. Missed numerous birthdays, like I said. So, there's definitely a selfish aspect of pursuing it, but I feel like I'm a better person for doing it, because if I was sitting at home and I wasn't doing what I love doing, then I'd probably be the biggest prick of all time. So just to keep myself happy, then hopefully I can make others around me happy.
Yeah, fair enough. So having a niece or nephew, presuming that your brother's not going to give you a third chance?
I hope not. They'll probably listen to this. I was going to say yes, but they're probably listening. So no, I hope not. I hope not.
Nah, beautiful. Now you went on a couple of trips with Pro Crick, is that right? You went over to the States?
Yeah. So we went on a trip. Basically what we do is Nathan sets up a trip. We go over to America, visit a whole bunch of places, and basically do a bunch of tryouts. I was lucky enough, I don't know if this is where you're going with this, but I was lucky enough that when we went there, we went to a bunch of really big places. We got to kick in front of Nick Saban, which honestly...
Yeah, so with Nick Saban, I just want to stop you. Is there any truth to the rumour that you walked up to Nick Saban and said, look, it'll be a mistake if you don't sign me?
That would be a complete lie. No, that's not true at all. I did manage to get into his office and have a conversation with him, which was awesome. By invitation of him, not me but kicking down the door.
Either way is cool.
Yeah. But he came out and basically... we turned up, we really didn't know what to expect. It's actually a pretty crazy story. We went from Memphis in the morning at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Some crazy reason Nathan made us do a weight session. We did a weight session in the morning, drove from Memphis all the way to Tuscaloosa. Still didn't know what the plan was, because Nathan doesn't share his plans. Fell asleep in the car park on the ground. There wasn't enough room in the car. We're asleep on the car park in Tuscaloosa out the front of the Alabama facility. Nathan came, finally told us that, yes, we are going to punt today. Went in there, off barely any hours sleep. All of a sudden, out walks Nick Saban in the straw hat. And we're like, oh, this is real, like that. That was honestly the moment where I was like, okay, this is cool, because he's one of the only few guys I know over here. And this feels like I'm back at the G. Not that I ever played at the G, but I could imagine that's what it felt like. This felt like I was back. This felt like I was back at Subiaco, playing in front of 50,000 or whatever. There's Nick Saban, the heart's pumping again. You're actually doing something that means something. You're achieving some things that not many guys get to do. So, had a really good day. Thought I punted pretty well. Got the big recruiting spiel in his office of, here's all my rings and what do you think type thing. So that was really, really cool. And that's something, honestly, that I'll, cherish for a long time, of just being able to do that. Besides, what was it, Jesse Williams and the guy that's there now that's punting for him, there's probably not been too many Australians in that office. So really cool thing to have done. Unfortunately, or fortunately, really, didn't end up there because I don't think I would have punted much with how good their team is. Really cool experience and a great trip. And like I said, just these kind of things as you go on, and the things that Nathan was able to do by setting up this program and being very selfless in his pursuit of wanting others to be happy is something I'll remember and cherish for a long time, and something that I think is pretty cool, even if Australians don't really understand it.
A couple of us Australians
no doubt.
It's a pretty big deal. But you were lucky enough to get an offer to the University of Kentucky. What was it like when that offer came through?
Yeah, awesome. A little bit of the arrogant me was like, what? Sorry, I was almost going to swear. What's going on? Like,
swear away.
What's going on? Like,
I've
kicked well at Bama, and Saban's got the rings out in front of me. And then the next day, 2 days later, we went to Tennessee, and Tennessee weren't interested, even though I thought I punted pretty well. And then 2 days later, we went to Auburn. I thought I punted pretty well, and they said no, although they ended up with Aaron Sipos, so it was probably a good decision. But like, I was just like, what's going on here? I felt like I impressed the king, and none of his servants are really interested. So had to sit back and bide my time. And again, you start to question whether it was worthwhile because honestly, a fair few months did go past. But then got the call from actually John Smith, who works at Pro Kick Australia one night, and he told me I was going to Kentucky. He was actually in bed with his wife and had to whisper the whole time, which was hilarious because it was about 2 a.m, which you'd think it would be a quick, like, hey, Maxie, you're going to Kentucky, like, congrats, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Nah, an hour of whispering. Just loved it. Loved it more than me. So it made me get out the schedule, loved it. And I loved it too, but he was pumped up. So it was awesome. Awesome to, like, at the time, I didn't really know a whole lot about Kentucky, but to go to an SEC school is, again, something that some people understand, some people definitely don't. It's unbelievably amazing opportunity to say that you've played in, SEC and college football in general, but SEC, just means more. That's the saying, and it really does. Like, I just absolutely loved it there, and couldn't have found a better place with all the friends, people I've met, networks I've been able to create since then. These programs are on a whole nother level. We just don't understand that back home. It's kind of, I guess like our version of, America's version of playing for the Pies, but times by about 1 million. So really, really cool opportunity, and was super stoked to know I was finally heading over to America.
And did you, at the end of it, walk away with a degree as well?
Yeah, I've got my master's degree somehow. Like many of the other guys, I'm not sure there was a whole lot of work done, but got the master's degree, sports psychology master's degree. So that's actually really cool and something that's helped me a lot too. So able to, hang my hat on that. Doing another master's right now at Murray, although I'm not sure I'll hopefully complete that if things work out the way I want them to work out. But yeah, got my master's in sports psych, and definitely a good little perk of playing football while getting a degree.
And we already mentioned that the move to Melbourne was pretty big at the time. How was the move then to move to America, to the other side of the world?
Yeah, massive. Again, like, you're a whole nother level of hours away from everyone else, and different time zone, and trying to call people at late hours of the night or the early hours of the morning. And definitely a culture shock when I first got here. Like, I'd been to America before, but I'd been to the tourist cities. I'd really just done the touristy things. I hadn't had to have a whole lot of conversations with Americans. And then I got over here and realized what they're like, and I regretted it for a little while, because sometimes they can be the most annoying pieces of shit of all time. But some of them are decent humans, some. So especially down in the South as well, in Kentucky, like, definitely a culture shock, the way that people act over here, but get used to it. And now, like, the guys, when I first rocked up at the facility that I thought were the biggest losers of all time, have become my best friends. So you get used to it. I'm not sure if that means I've become more American. Maybe I came home, people are going to hate me too, but definitely gotten used to it, and really kind of, I started to understand the culture a lot more too and realize what it's all about. And I wouldn't recommend going to Kentucky on a holiday unless you're coming over to watch, the Kentucky Derby or some horse racing, but it's been a cool state.
What was the biggest culture shock for you? Like being an Aussie going over there?
I would say, the easy answer is just like the food. But the real answer is like what people are like. Seriously, like how patriotic they are, how really passionate they are about things that we as Australians just are happy to sit back on a beach and put our feet up, and these guys want to have heated debates about things that are important for sure, but I'm just not sure that two 19-year-olds sitting in the Kentucky facility during 10 a.m. breakfast are going to solve the world's problems. So but always good to kind of get into some heated debates and get some guys fired up, which was good. But no, honestly, it's just a change of culture. We all speak the same language and we have similar likes and stuff, but there's still very different ways of living.
Now, this might just be me being a little bit ignorant, but as far as I knew and was into, the UK was kind of more of a basketball powerhouse than a football powerhouse.
Can't say that anymore.
How did you find? Can't say that? No? Well, feel free to rant how good the UK football is. But how did you going into a school that, as far as I know, was, being on the other side of the world, is more basketball dominant?
Yeah, so head coach Mark Stoops and head coach of the basketball program, John Calipari, got into a very heated Twitter exchange earlier this year. So I'm not sure if you're starting to try and fuel that fire. It was honestly the biggest news in Kentucky. Obviously you guys wouldn't hear it, but basically Calipari said, the football program getting better and winning games is nice, but we're always going to be a basketball school, and that's how it'll always be. And Stoops decided to fire back and say, well, we're the only team that's actually won a postseason game in the last 4 years, so I'm not sure if it is a basketball school, which sounds funny and it sounds like a bit of back and forth. I can tell you people were fired up over here. That's
very passionate.
Blasphemous thing to say, that to ever, kind of talk bad about the basketball team, because it really is the biggest basketball program. And I don't care about NBA, and it's the biggest basketball program in America. Just because it's the only basketball program in Kentucky. Kentucky people are crazy, absolutely nuts. They've got nothing better to do in this state, and so they love watching their sports, and basketball's the one. Basketball, we get first-round draft picks every single year. We had, the team that went 38-0 and lost in the Final Four and had 10 guys drafted from the whole team, and it's just on a whole nother level of craziness, the basketball. But the football's definitely getting better, and it's something they poured a lot of money into, and Mark Stoops has done a really good job. And the fact that he has done such a good job and football's grown in popularity shows how good of a job he's done, because basketball was the one. And there's been a lot of angry basketball fans the last 4 years until this year. And even this year, when they only won one game in March Madness, it's kind of unheard of how bad they've been, or how little success, I should more so say, because they haven't been terrible. They can't seem to get it done when March comes around. So, yeah, just cool. But again, to go to a school like Kentucky and be able to go to some of these games and see some of these guys in the flesh, and, Rajon Rondo's down on our sideline when we're playing football, and, Anthony Davis is there out in the field, and Devin Booker, and those kind of guys. It's I don't feel... And I am just a student. There's so many students that go there, but I don't feel like I should be in the same vicinity as those people. And they're kind of out at our games watching us and stuff. It was really, really cool.
We all know that they're just there to see the punter, mate. Don't worry about that.
Especially when a few of them have NBA championship rings as well. They're probably wearing to the game. Slightly intimidating.
Yeah, I'm not sure they stuck around for the whole game or not, but they definitely enjoyed it. And yeah, people just there's Louisville obviously as well in Kentucky, but Louisville fans are just in Louisville. Everywhere else in Kentucky are UK fans. So really, really cool to have that. And one thing that's kind of made me realize that, I don't want to jump the gun with you guys, but that's made me realize that since then is being able to do my podcast that I had going for a little while, and then also be on the radio show that I was on, which won an award the other day for biggest sports radio show outside of the top 10 markets. just show like how passionate people are about Kentucky and how much they loved it. Like we'll travel around the state, we'll travel around the country even sometimes for our radio show, and people will still be turning up wearing their UK blue, and it's pretty cool. It's something that is very different from Australia, and I wish we had a little bit more of. There's definitely things I love that we have in Australia that they are very small on here, but the fanaticism is really on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
It seems like whether it's football, basketball, the college, people who support college and like the fans, that like every time the stadium's full, no matter what sort of game. Like how many people are you getting in the football stadium?
It's just 65 was our limit, but it's just such a more personal connection for people because the majority of those people like went to UK, so you feel like you're a part of it. It's like we just don't have anything like it. I don't think. I mean, maybe really big high school football in Melbourne. I don't know if that's like. I'm not saying it's close, but as in like some guys might go back and watch the team. Like old boys might go back and watch it. Like it's like that times a million, obviously. But like I just don't. It's hard to describe because we really don't have a lot of school or college, or really none, in Australia. But you kind of feel that personal connection to the people that are on those sporting teams of your college because you went there or you were very close to it. So it's kind of cool.
You say that it's a bit like school footy where they're getting 1,500 people. Was it your third or fourth game you've gone to? Was it Georgia and you had 110,000 or something like that?
We played Texas A&M. So the home of Johnny Manziel. I think we had about 112. I think it sits. It was sold out because at the time we were 5-0 and they were 3-2, but they'd only lost to Alabama and Clemson, which were two pretty handy teams. So big game, massive for UK too. Like the fact we were 5-0 was huge. Hadn't been that way for a long, long time. Had just knocked off two SEC opponents back home, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and went to Texas A&M to take them on. Unfortunately lost in overtime, but really, really fun. And one of the best things that I enjoy about that, and it was still probably, even though we lost, it was one of my favorite, if not favorite moment, was that my dad and my sister got to be there and they got to see it. And like, I think I'm almost certain it was Dad's first game. I think he flew over for that one and then saw the next home game. And for him to see kind of the work that you put in, like come to fruition, but also just to realize like, okay, this isn't, him going to play A-grade amateur footy over somewhere just because he's bored. Like this is actually, somewhat big time. And, a few people are kind of interested in this sport. It was really, really fun. And I think he got a big kick out of it. And, he didn't get to see me play very much at Fremantle because I wasn't the greatest player. So he never got the crowds. He got the 500 people at Peel. Which I think 400 people probably walked in by mistake thinking something else is going on. So when he got to go watch me play in front of that many people, and I actually had like 10 punts that day, it was really awesome and felt like it was a good payback for all the times he's helped me out.
Would have been a very proud moment for him.
Yeah, I think so. He doesn't say a whole lot sometimes, but yeah, I think so. I think he enjoyed
it. Do you reckon he's got a bit of a like seeing that for the first game and there's 112,000 people, does he think, shit, does this happen every week?
Yeah, he definitely got the unfair, like, that's not really how it always is. Well, it is for SEC football, but I have to try to describe to him sometimes that it's not all like that. Like there is, that's not all college football. And even explaining to him about how little people understand how to kick a ball over here, which you'll get to at some stage, is like mind blowing to him. Like I try to explain to him, simple concepts of how to kick a ball, and people that are in charge of me don't understand. And he's just like, I don't know, like we grow up kicking the ball back home. So it's just hard to comprehend that. But I guess it would be the same if, we had a position that had quarterbacks play 3 times a game and we're trying to teach them how to throw and we got no idea.
We'll roll with the punches. You said before that you had a bit of, was it with Nathan or one of the other boys there at Pro Kick, of a different idea of how to actually punt the ball? Is that also what you're doing?
Yeah, me and Nathan used to always like discuss what the best, not so much the best way. We agree on the best way, but it was just that everyone does it different, and I would try to do it my way a lot of the time, and he wanted to set me up so I could be better, and I've definitely changed a lot of what I did do at the start to what he's done, but I've also brought in a bit of the stuff that I liked to do and I thought I did well, and we just used to go back and forth, and I always used to say, like, you can have input, Nathan, but I'm not listening. Like, this is, I'm going to do it my way, which is probably silly. But, I mean, in some ways, we definitely, like, that's a joking thing. Obviously, I took a lot of what he said on board and definitely had to listen to how to punt a football in the first place. But, yeah, just there is different ways to skin a cat. So, as you can imagine, with the Australian guys coming over here and rolling out, like, it's not typical for Americans to do that. So there's different ways of having success, and it doesn't always look the same.
Yeah, so speaking of rolling out, when I was doing a bit of research, as soon as you write your name into Google, it comes up with AFL player has incredible play. I know what the play was, but can you talk about the play that I'm referring to?
I'm guessing it's probably NC State.
I reckon it's a pretty easy guess.
Yeah. Yeah, had to sell a bit of candy, which I've Venmo requested, which you guys may not know what Venmo is, but I've requested some money from him many times via Instagram, and he hasn't sent me any. So I'm still waiting on him. He bought all the candy but never paid for it. So not sure what he's doing. No, he was an awesome dude. Actually, we were laughing about it after, but basically we knew that they'd set up a scheme to come after the punt just because I knew what their coordinator's like. And, I was honestly, I've admitted this once before, I was a little bit hungover, so I wasn't really sharp, as sharp as I should have been. So I probably took a little bit longer than what I should have in just kicking it in the first place. So I kind of lazily had to go around him, which was, ended up in a highlight that they thought was incredible. Obviously, we see it a lot. I would add that when you do it in American football, there's a lot more on the line than just getting paid hold the ball in an AFL game. Like, that's probably the game right there if you screw it up. So your heart's racing a little bit more. But no, something obviously we do all the time and we see, every single week at AFL. So just kind of comes naturally.
And any truth that you got a spray from Coach Stoop when you got to the boundary?
Yes. Well, somewhat. He loves me a lot, and he was very, very nice to me the whole time. He just wanted to know why the fuck I would do that. And I said, well, if they're diving at me, Coach, I got to go around him. And so he didn't really know at the time. Like, he's watching so many things, controlling so many stuff, and he thought I was just playing around because used to do it at practice a little bit where, like, you're getting bored of just kicking a football because it does get very, very boring. And so you try to entertain yourself and you might go round one or try and run for a first down rather than punting a football. And he'd tell me just to stick to punting. And so I think he thought I'd tried something like that, given it was going to be like it was my last game. So he might have just thought, he's gone stuff it. It's my last game. But then he watched the tape after when we were hopping back on the plane and he gave me the fist bump. He said, that was actually pretty cool. I said, thanks, Coach. Appreciate that. But one of the coolest things, again, things that not everyone gets to do, ended up on, ESPN Top 10 and all over, like ESPN Twitter and Barstool Twitter and all that kind of stuff over here, which, is not amazing, but it's actually pretty cool to kind of get some of those things sometimes. And you're like, wow, that's kind of fun.
I'd say it's pretty amazing. As an Australian athlete, 100% that's an amazing thing to be able to do and like to get up on ESPN and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was good. And then we won that game, which I know it's a very cliche thing to say, but actually made it worthwhile because we only won by 2 points. So I felt like I contributed a little bit to that because if we get blocked there, it's in some way very game changing.
Like you said, game over.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm guessing if Coach gave you a little bit of a spray beforehand, he wasn't running many design trick plays for you?
No, he wasn't. But he'd actually, so earlier that year, what had happened, we played Missouri and I just took off and ran one for a first down one time. And it was basically because most teams sent a few, I don't want to get into punt scheme because that would bore everyone. Most people send a few more than two. So you can't run around them, right? Because they know the Australian guys are probably going to try it at some stage. So Missouri were disrespectful and were sending 2. So I was like, well, if they're going to send 2, I'm running. So I made the executive decision that I'd take off, got the first down, which was great. Didn't realize it was a 15-yard penalty if you spike the ball after a first down. So got the 15-yard penalty back, but still, we still got 11 yards, which was good. We still got the first down, so they were happy with it. But had done that the year before, and he started to trust me with like making decisions with ball in hand, which for Scott Pendlebury and guys like that, that's probably not a big surprise. But from Americans, it's insane to basically give your punter free will of what he wants to do. And we designed basically a scheme where if I ever decided I wanted to run, we had basically tried to block for it. And it was great until literally the first game I did it, and someone that was supposed to block slipped over and I got tackled and we didn't get the first down and we turned the ball over. So that went out the window very quick, and that's probably why he was pretty angry at the time, because he told me we're not doing that ever again.
Yeah. Fair enough. In 2019, you averaged 48.1 yards per punt and then took home the Ray Guy Award. That must have been pretty surreal.
Yeah, it was. Again, I mean, it's more so the reward of, and kind of the I don't know what the word is, the physical reward of taking the risk, going over, doing all the work, going away from family, going away from friends, doing all the selfish stuff, but also all the stuff that made you miss home. And then you get the physical reward that you can show them. Like, if I come second, I don't get to show them anything. I don't get to, say, oh, remember that time I came second? Like, no one cares about someone that comes second. So, like, the fact that I got to win it was really, like, that was the best part, more so for the other people. Like, for myself, obviously, I mean, I loved it. I was smiling, trust me. But for the other people, just to be able to show them that was great. And, like, if you're sitting around at a table and you're my old man who's got nothing better to do but talk about golf, you can say, oh, my son won this award, instead of being like, my son came third in this award or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's a different ring to it. So I was really, really happy to be able to pay back all the people that have put a lot of time and effort into me. And then also, like, the self-gratification of took the risk, went over there and got it done, and felt like, I mean, all my hard work was to make sure that it was going to be worthwhile, but you never promised anything, unfortunately, no matter how hard you try. So it was really, really great to kind of get that reward. And, again, be on ESPN award show, meet Jalen Hurts, who come up and said, good job, buddy. Be there with Joe Burrow. Yeah, exact best guy of all time. Seriously, so nice. Met him a couple of times. Joe Burrow's there. Coach Ogeron's there. Saban was there. Like, all these dudes are there that you like. Well, Jonathan Taylor, like, all these awesome guys. Chase Young, like, all these dudes, all these big dudes are there. So it's the slimy little punter sitting in the fourth row, just waiting on them to hopefully call his name. So again, felt out of place, but a really, really cool experience, and something I would never had if I didn't take the risk. So really cool at the same time.
Do you go in the speech and just turn to Nick Saban and say, oh, you made the wrong call, mate?
I wish. I was actually hoping, not in an arrogant and pricky way, I actually wanted to genuinely just go over and thank him. We played Alabama in 2020, and normally the coaches are out there before the game. And I was going to say to him, I know you don't remember me at all, but I do appreciate what you did for me when I came over, and I feel like you've changed my life a lot, so I thank you. And then I got COVID before the game, so I didn't get to play.
No.
So, yeah, never have got to run into him since then, unfortunately, and probably never will. But yeah, no, there was no smart ass remarks. I'm a bit of a smart ass sometimes, but I'm actually very, very. I feel very lucky to have experienced some of the things that I have. So it's awesome. That was a very cool night. For my brother and my dad got to fly over too. ESPN flew them over, which was, again, a treacherous trip for them. Like, fly over, go do the night, fly back, basically. and it's safe to say, like, we were pretty hydrated afterwards. You get a free room with free drinks and food, and then we went out in the town afterwards to celebrate, which you have to. And then they had to get on the flight the next day, which was pretty rough, but all worth it. All worth it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Before we move on from your time at UK, I just want to touch on the facilities.
Before I run out of battery.
Oh, no. Beautiful. That's it. See, I'm rocking a 1970s laptop, so I have to make sure it's plugged in.
No, you're good. All right, go for it.
Before we do move on from your time at UK, I want to touch on the facilities because you've been in an elite AFL, obviously. Like, I know you didn't play many, but you got to be in the facilities every week. What are the facilities like at UK, a top school, compared to what we dredge in over here?
Yeah, I mean it doesn't compare. I mean, that's not degrading Fremantle in any way, shape, or form, but it's not even close. Like, I'm at Murray State right now. We're an FCS school. We basically got the same as Fremantle, if not better. And we're, 100 and some people might call us a 200th ranked-ish team in the country type thing. Like, yeah. And we're a pretty small school in Kentucky. So, yeah, you can't compare. I mean, we got a weight room that was the size of the entire Fremantle facility just for us. Yeah, like no other sports, just for football. Practice fields that are kept like the Masters greens, indoor facility that's massive. All the recovery places and exercises and machines that you could possibly need. I mean, flying jet to each game, and it's just everything was awesome. Like, the money that is involved is just on a whole nother level. And honestly, I would say this would be correct, although Aaron Sipos might correct me, but I'm pretty sure, having been in NFL facilities, SEC facilities are better than NFL facilities. They just are, because you don't have to recruit. You don't have to recruit at any NFL level. So it's not a draw to have the best. It's just, let's have solid, really solid, well, better than solid, but solid facilities. So, unbelievable.
No, you see all the videos of the when the new facilities open and the students are going through, and you see they are next level. And as you said, the NFL, they don't have to say, they pretty much say, you're coming to us. We don't have to try and poach you over there. So
no doubt,
they're definitely on the next level.
I mean, Alabama's got a bowling alley and a couple basketball courts, and Florida just put in the new swimming pool that's like not a swimming pool; it's like a resort pool out the back, and just stuff like that. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, nah. I want to touch on a story about how you got drafted to the CFL without even knowing that you were in the draft. How does that even happen?
Because we've got a crazy coach that's the best guy of all time, and if he didn't do stuff like this, Pro Kick wouldn't be where it's at. But he is crazy, 100%. So John Smith is a guy that works with Nathan at Pro Kick Australia. He's the guy that will stay up till all hours of the morning making all the calls to the coaches, basically just pestering them till they say yes. And honestly, I mean, it sounds funny. That is the reason why we've been able to break into this market, is he just wouldn't let them say no. And I love him for it. So, I got a text saying, Maxie, you've just been drafted into the CFL from him. And I said, well, that's impossible, because I'd never actually put my name in. And he just never responded to me. 2 picks later, Aaron Sipos gets picked up in the CFL as well. And I text Aaron, I said, did you put your name in? And he said, no. I said, Johnny did it, 100%. And so we both got drafted to the CFL, which is a really cool privilege, honestly. I never went and played, but it's really, really cool. But didn't even enter our names into the draft and still got drafted, which was hilarious. So, drafted into, I think I've been drafted into 3 professional leagues, which is pretty cool. Another cool little thing. But the CFL one was just absolutely out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And so of those 3, the NFL, unfortunately, was not one of them. And it didn't quite work out the way you wanted, but signing an undrafted free agent contract with the Denver Broncos still must be pretty special. Disappointed, honestly, to have never played. Disappointed to have never played a game. Definitely, again, it sounds almost unappreciative saying that, because
it's such a great accomplishment as it is, and something that lots of Australians that either come over here or sit at home would, I guess, dream of, just to say you walked into the facility, let alone got to practice, let alone got to sign a contract. But for me, it was like that. At that point, I didn't care. I just wanted to play. Like, felt I'd put in all the hard work, felt I'd done well enough to get the opportunity. Draft day was a big enough disappointment in itself that once I got the call from Denver to come on, I thought, let's go get after it. And thought I did really, really well, actually, at camp. Numbers would suggest that, although they clearly, there's only 32 jobs. They got to make some decisions. So sometimes I wasn't super young, but the young guys miss out. NFL-wise, I was young. So, but went in there, again, very, very appreciative to get the opportunity, but just really, really annoyed that I never got to play. Because, again, I've been able to, in some ways, pay back. But, again, like I keep saying, to not have played that game pisses me off more so for the people that have missed out on things. I would have loved to have just played one game, but wasn't to be. And still happy for all the things that I got to do there. Like, talking to Von Miller and having a casual chat's not a bad thing to say that you've done in your life, or, chatting to whoever it is, Rick Fangio or whoever. But, just really annoyed I didn't make it. Secondly, annoyed that they called me Tim Tebow the whole time because I wore the number 15. Which they thought was hilarious.
I love Timmy Tebow. What do you mean?
Yeah, but when they're just calling you Tim because you got handed the number 15 because no one else wants to wear it there. It was a good time. I really did enjoy it. Denver itself was really cool too. So fun, but not what I wanted.
I think anyone who begrudges you for being disappointed and not getting it and feeling that dissatisfaction, I guess, for getting that hard or working that hard and not getting that far is someone who's, like you said, sits on the couch and dreams of it. So I don't think you should be too hard on yourself to be disappointed that you didn't get that game.
It's tough sometimes when it's probably the only position and maybe the only sport where you could be your best, be judged the best in the world in the one underneath, and not get the shot at the next level. Like, no best running back in the college is missing out. No best quarterback, nothing. So it is what it is. And that's why sport's great, because not everyone gets to win. And that's what makes it awesome. But when you're on the losing side, you think that's what sucks about it. So, it is what it is.
If you weren't disappointed for not playing the game, like do you really have that love, or like are you really competitive enough to play?
And it makes you respect it more. Like, I always compare it, and probably stupidly, to like when you're playing Madden and you're on beginner mode and you're putting up 70, it's not as fun as losing by 7 points when you're playing on expert mode or something. You know what I mean? Like, you want that challenge and you want it. It has to be real. Like, you have to lose at times for it to be fun. And unfortunately, I've lost probably, everyone does, way more times than I've won. But that is what makes it fun, and you have to kind of appreciate that about it.
Yeah. The problem with the Broncos is the guy they picked in front of you has already been cut. So
yeah, correct.
You still could have been there, but that's their loss, I guess.
Yeah. No, and it is. And you kind of does run through your mind at times of just, a lot of how things work out and how much luck plays a role. Like, there's no doubt luck played a role so much in what I've been able to achieve, let alone what I've missed out on. And, if he, for some reason, pulls a hammy or tears a calf when we're in camp, well, I win and I might still be there. But it doesn't work out like that. And people would probably say the same for some of the stuff that I've been able to achieve. Well, maybe if he had done this, and this, it wouldn't have worked out, which is true. So, it's just the way it works out. And you've got to appreciate the good times, because there's not a whole lot of them sometimes.
That's the best way of looking at it. How did you end up creating the Pin It Deep podcast and then end up starring on the UK radio? How did all that come about?
Out of boredom, severe boredom. I'd actually got a workout at the Minnesota Vikings about 3 or 4 weeks after I got cut by the Broncos. And actually, you want me to tell you a story about how I got cut by the Broncos? You'll enjoy this. This is
Go ahead.
Please.
okay. So
It is all about you.
I was thinking about that, but I was like, is it a sensitive
no, it's
topic?
fine.
Like, I don't want to dive deep.
It's another just story that wasn't great at the time, but is actually kind of unique. So we basically get told that, tomorrow's the cut day, and we're making decisions, and this is it. It is what it is, and so I've gone in and I'm like, oh, this is going to be tight. But the guys said that we're probably going to take both of you through. Like, we'll take you to the preseason. And we're talking about game one preseason plans and all this. And I'm like, oh, I'm probably all right. Like, I feel like my number's pretty good. Like, I'll be fine. So we go to it's a special teams meeting in the morning. And he goes, guys, I got 2 good bits of news. One, no practice today. We're just having a fun event, like, cornhole and bit of waffle ball and throwing balls at people so they get dunked in the tank and all that. And 2, everyone here has made the cut. Congratulations. So everyone's clapping, right? Everyone's super happy. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm through. Like, I've made it. And I'm looking around to see if the other punter's there, because I didn't even know if he was there yet. So I'm like, have they cut him? What's going on? I see him. I'm like, all right, good. We're still in competition. This is fine. Like, I'm stoked, like, that everything's worked out and they're going to give me a crack. Because basically, if you do that, you're getting a preseason game, right?
Yeah.
Because first week back is basically preseason. So I'm like, maybe if I don't play a game, I'll play in a preseason game, and they'll definitely give me a shot because I'm the young guy and all this. And I'm over the moon. Like, you could not be happier. And it makes me upset sometimes when I talk about it, but like, you could not be happier. Then we're walking out of the facility to basically go start these games. They put me in a team. Like, they've given teams, and we had to get points. And they put me in the yellow team. I remember what team I was put in. We were given yellow costumes and yellow hats. And so I've been given this yellow costume, yellow hat. I'm about to put it all on. And I get a tap on the shoulder. Hey, Max, can you come outside with us real quick? Like, yeah, sure. Like, what's going on? Maybe it's
I'm on the orange team, not on the yellow team.
Right. Is it a visa thing? Because I knew we were still going through a bit of visa stuff or something. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, let's go sort it out, because I want to join in on this. Go outside. Hey, man, we're going to have to let you go. I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like, in what way? Oh, you've been cut. And I'm like, oh.
But you just said I made it.
You just told me I was through and I'm on the yellow team. Like, what do you mean? Like, I almost felt like running back in there and just pretending that I didn't hear him. But I was like, geez.
Oh, the adrenaline high and then dump must have been absolutely
unbelievable. Like, from the highest of highs to literally the lowest of lows. And the thing on top of that was, it was my brother's wedding that day. And I was like, I've missed the wedding. I've gotten through. He's going to be stoked. I'm going to call him after the wedding, let him know I got through. And then I miss it. And I'm like, well, maybe it wasn't for nothing. But at the time, it's like, missed this and put in all this work and haven't been able to give him the good news. So, one of the craziest roller coasters of emotions in a day of all time, for sure.
Yes.
I forgot where I was at, though. What was I talking about?
You said then after that you had a workout with Minnesota.
Yeah, and then I forget what I was getting to. What was the question?
About the podcast.
Oh, yeah. So I got the workout with Minnesota, and basically the special team, and this is just how it works over here. This is not a sub story. It's just to tell people how these things work. The Broncos special teams coordinator had basically told the special teams coordinator at Minnesota I was better than their person. They should take me. He calls me up. He said, hey, mate, Minnesota's going to bring you on. They're about to cut their guy. Just go kick a ball for them. Show them you're sweet. I'm like, perfect. I'm about to play like game one, because literally it was the last week of preseason, and it was cold quit. He'd done so badly in preseason that they were about to cut him. And so I'm like, sweet. So how NFL workouts work, there's normally 2 or 3 people invited. Usually, if they're going to sign someone, you get a medical. If you pass the medical, you're in. And so everyone's just crossing their fingers for the medical when they get a workout. Go in, do the workout, did okay. Had food poisoning actually the night before, which didn't help, but thought I did okay. I was throwing up till about 4 a.m., but can't make an excuse when you get on that. You just got to get in there and get it going. So I did all right. held in front of their GM, held in front of their special teams coordinator, everyone. Like, I'm just doing this workout by myself. So I'm like, oh, he's right. Like, I'm getting the spot. They're like, hey, the special teams coordinator's chatting to me and asking me all these questions. And the GM goes, hey, we got plenty of time to talk to him. Just send him off for the medical. I'm like, oh, got it. Like, sweet. Call the agent straight away. I'm like, they're sending me for the medical. This is just like they said. I mean, this is going to be awesome. He's like, well, don't count your chickens before they hatch. But I agree. It looks like it's pretty good signs. Pass the medical, all good to go. Hey, we'll take you back to the facility. Go back to the facility. They say, hey, look, we've had a discussion. We're going to think about things over the next day or two. We'll contact you. Said, perfect. Next day, they signed Jordan Berry and just never get a call ever again.
Yeah, done by another Aussie as well.
Yeah, done by another Aussie who lives in Kentucky, and I go have beers with him all the time. So, and he's never even apologized for stealing my spot. There's never been a second of sorrow from him. It's just, hey, come have a drink at my $2 million house because you never got any money. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. So anyway, after that, knew I was maybe going to get a few more workouts, but nothing guaranteed. So all I'm doing is sitting in Kentucky training, and there's nothing else. I mean, there's really nothing else you can do. I mean, kicking a football, you can do that 3 times a week and work out. That's fine, but want to keep myself entertained. So UK season was about to start, and I was like, well, why don't I just talk about UK football? Like, no, I don't know anyone that does that here. So, and I was stupid because there's so many people that did it, but I was like, why don't I just do that? So I contacted what I didn't really understand at the time was the main sports guy that runs Kentucky Sports Radio. I just messaged him on Twitter. I said, hey, mate, you seem pretty big on Twitter. I've heard that you make some comments about UK football, basically. Could you tell me how to get into it? Or is there a chance that like you'd want to, get me on your show or something like that? And he's like, let's have lunch tomorrow, which he was so nice to respond to me in the first place. So go meet him for lunch. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I have no clue. He's like, do you want to write? I said, no. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, let's just talk. Like, let's just talk football, me and you. And he's like, well, I've already got a show, so I'm pretty good right now. But we can get you involved in that a little bit, and then you can do a podcast if you want. But you've got to do 2 trial podcasts before we let you go on, because, I mean, that we organise the guests, but they're a pretty big platform. So it's like, all right, so we did 2. He gave us the tick of approval, me and my buddy that used to kick. And then from there, we got guests from UK football every week, and we're getting great numbers and having a lot of fun and basically just keeping myself busy. Like guys like Will Levis obviously came on because he was playing for UK football. And then we did a good enough job with that KSR, so Kentucky Sports Radio, would have me on every now and then weekly. And then it turned to, I would do the pregame for football, and then I do some post games for football. And it just got bigger and bigger, and enjoyed it, but loved every minute of it. And really, really happy for the people I met and all the networks it's made me. Honestly, in Kentucky, not that this is surprising being a punter, but more people know me from the radio than they do for playing football, 100%. Like, I'm the Australian guy on the radio. I'm not the Australian guy that ever played for UK. So that's kind of a cool little thing. Like, when I got to Murray State here that I'm coaching at, I've been stopped 5, 6, 7 times for being the radio guy, like not for being the football player. So that's kind of interesting, but it shows how big that radio show is. Like, that's not because I was good on it. It's just because it's so big that it's just so popular. So had a great time, did some trips with them, and loved it. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be involved than talk about it. Now, I know I'm on a podcast that, trust me, I had one too. So I love it. I loved it. And it's so fun. But I just want to win and lose. Like, I don't want to talk about the winning and losing and make jokes. And I listen to Pardon My Take all the time and shows like that, and it's awesome. But I just want to win and lose. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to be a part of it. And I want to have that feeling of like not every, but 12 Saturdays a year, I get to find out if I'm good or not. So, which technically as a coach, that's not entirely correct, but you do feel like you're a part. So, gave up the radio and the podcasting that was actually going somewhat decently and got back into coaching.
Are you
So-
sorry, mate? I just want to touch on. You said you watch or you listen to Pardon My Take. Are you a Pat McAfee fan or?
The show's not terrible. I see. That's one thing. Before we get to it, that's one thing that honestly is the biggest refreshing thing. And it sounds weird, but when you're doing radio and when you're doing podcasts and when you're trying to build your brand a little bit with, within Kentucky, but also nationally, you got to tweet. Like, you've got to put some things out there, whether they're right, wrong, stupid, funny, whatever. They're probably half of them or most of them aren't funny, but you've got to try and create some content, right? And people also are caring about what your opinion is to some extent, particularly with UK football. So I didn't really enjoy it, but I knew it was a part that I had to be a part of if I wanted to, do that lifestyle. And so anything that I'm doing, I'm all in. So I was like, I'm getting after everyone here. Like, not as in like I had to bag him. I just wanted to give my opinion, and obviously turned sour with Pat, but it's something that I've enjoyed not having to do anymore. Like, I don't think my opinion's always right or anything like that. And I hate having debates with people over things that really don't matter. And I'm very happy I'm back to just coaching.
So are you saying that kicking a ball into someone's ass is not something that matters, or?
Well, it mattered to the Miami Dolphins, although Pat didn't seem to think it mattered, or it wasn't his fault too much. So I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what his point was. A lot of, like, I don't know what you boys think. I just think that if someone's in front of you, just don't kick it into them. It's a very simple thing to do. They didn't appreciate it very much. Like, Morstead's his best buddy. And the funny thing is, and this is not me talking in a arrogant way, but why did they care? Like, he not only called me out twice and waited, by the way, to call me out like 4 weeks after I'd done it. He didn't do it at the time. He waited 4 weeks. He not only did that, Morstead started tweeting stuff like, who would you rather listen to? And like, this is why Pat's so good. I'm like, lads, I know you're better than me. I don't know what you're trying to prove. It was almost them justifying, well, not justifying, but like saying that I had an argument that I could be better than them. There's no argument. It was just a bit of debate, but they got wound up. Like, that is one thing that it's just the punting world, so not a whole lot of people care, but the Americans aren't super happy that there's Australians over here taking their jobs, and they get pretty fired up. And anytime they get to go at one of us or try and, make us, try and paint us in a bad light, they do it. And Pat is a guy that will say, I like Australians, I love what they brought to the game, and then bag us for the next 10 minutes. And I've never appreciated it. And on his show, he's had a crack at me and a few others sometimes, which when he first said that he didn't care about what my opinion was, although talked about my opinion for 10 minutes, he also said he didn't know me. And I'd heard him have a crack at me multiple times because people sent it to me. So he was taking the pot shots first, and then I just thought I'd tell him, like, it's just really not appropriate to kick the ball into someone else.
I'm sure he didn't appreciate the ball in the ass when it came in.
Well, the player wouldn't have appreciated it very much. But
I don't know. I feel like you said, he did do it at the top level, but you have a fair idea of what you're doing. You did play, top professional sport over here. You made it to the top elite, college punter. So I feel like you've got a bit of an idea what you're doing. Yeah, I'd like to think so. I also just think that, like, I'm all for a bit of a debate back and forth, lighthearted. He got pretty fired up. Like, I joked at the time that it was like a kid that had been told no for the first time, because you got to go to his show and find him on YouTube. Like, no one's going there to make fun of him or bag him. And because he's the only guy over here that is a known specialist, like that, you could ask anyone in America who's ever punted or kicked a football. The only person they know is Pat, because he's the only one that does media. Yeah. So every time there's a kicking or punting question, they ask Pat. Well, Pat's not always right about everything. It's like if you only asked, I don't know, which they do really, Peyton Manning about anything to do with football, like just because he was the best football player. It's like, yeah, he's right most of the time, and some of the times he's good, but we can also decide that Pat doesn't always know what he's talking about, particularly when it comes to punting, because Americans just really don't know, to be fair. So, interesting little debate. But for me, I just prefer not to kick the ball into people, that's all.
On the point of Americans not really knowing how to punt, we had the chairman of Gridiron Australia, Brett, on the other week, and he was saying that a lot of the universities now are like going after Australian punters only. Is that a true fact? Like from being in the States?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why it's not a bad thing. So this is the American mindset, right? It's not a bad thing to admit that maybe someone else in a different country might be better than something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're so patriotic that it's like, you know, they still don't want to admit to Vietnam. Like, they just got so many things that they just don't want to admit to. And we are better, and there's a reason for it. It's not us being arrogant or anything like that. As Australians, we grow up and we kick the ball to our dad, our brother, our mum, our sister, whatever, out the back. They throw the ball. So over a period of time, who's going to be better? Us. Like, it's common sense, and it's not a debate. Like, they can't do it. And so they're okay at some things. Like, they're all right at punting like it is. But when it comes to, you know, skill of, can I kick the ball where I want it to go? Can I kick it into that post? Could I pass it to that person that's 10 yards away? Can't do it. Yeah, they can kick the shit out of the ball sometimes, but they just don't have the same level of skill, but also more so understanding of just how it's done and all the things you can do with it. And I think there's 120 Division 1 schools over here, and about 75 of the starters are Australian. So, I mean, they can say what they want. Clearly, the stats suggest we are doing a pretty decent job, although the NFL hasn't quite caught on yet. But it'll only be a matter of time.
Yeah, we've got 3 or 4 already climbing in there, so we're getting there.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get at least half the team, so then we'll have a bit more of a lease,
no doubt.
at least for the whole American
population. And there will be soon, just by pure weight of numbers of how many Australians we've got in college. Like, it'll happen, although it is still a little bit behind the times of, like, just the way, and I won't bore you with it, but the way that they recruit in NFL, it's still a little bit biased towards the home stayers, but it'll get there for sure. The guys are just too good.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's a lot that goes into it, but basically there's not a whole lot of people that understand or care about punting. And so they're very inclined to listen to the 1 or 2 or 3 people that run the big camps over here who are American, who compete with Chappie and who don't want to promote Chappie's business. So they're never going to recommend an Australian. And so it's just the way it works. But the best guys get through. Like, hey, like, the absolute studs of the studs still get through because they're just too good not to. Like Aaron, Mitch, Cam, Dicko, just the absolute weapons get through because you just can't say no to a product eventually.
Yeah.
So your last stint was being drafted by the Pittsburgh Maulers in the USFL. How was that?
It was good. It was another fantastic story of highs and lows. I got told, so I wanted to obviously keep playing, keep giving it a crack, and I got told 2 or 3 weeks before the draft by the New Orleans team, they gave me a call out of nowhere and said, make sure you sign up for this league. We're going to draft you. I said, awesome. Rang my agent, said, hey, have you heard of the USFL? He said, yep. I said, what are they paying? It was enough. Said, let's do it. How do I sign up? Signed up, did everything I had to do. Draft day comes, they draft someone else. All right. Well, cool. I'm not sure how that happened, but that's fine. And so I've gone from because you have to, telling parents, people I'm working for, everyone, hey, this opportunity's come up. I'm going to be doing this. Draft comes up in a few weeks. They've guaranteed my spot. I'm out of here. Took someone else. So I'm literally in terms of emotions at rock bottom because feel like I've just had so many ups and downs sometimes. And it's the least of worries compared to some people. But for myself, that's put a lot into it. I was like, damn. 30 seconds later, get a phone call. Hey, I know we haven't spoken to you, but this is the GM of the Pittsburgh Maulers. We're going to draft you with the next pick. I was like, well, nice. Awesome. And honestly, at the time, I cried because I just, and it's only punting, I get it, but I just had so many ups and downs that I was so flat that I didn't get picked up by New Orleans that I was like, man, this sucks and it's so embarrassing. I've told everyone I'm getting drafted and I'm not. and then someone brings you up and gives you a chance. It's like, finally, someone's given me a chance. So I was pretty happy about that one. Didn't realize the league was really fun and good. We went 1-9, which sucks when you're getting paid for win bonuses. Yeah, but it was fun. The only thing about it was the first game of the season, they decide, well, not the first game, but for the whole season, they're going to put this chip in a ball, which basically is able to track fourth down rather than them have to bring the chains out, which is great technology, right? Except it feels like a brick when you kick it. Like a literal brick, it's about that big. I know you can't, I should use words if I'm on a podcast or a radio here, but it's about
on YouTube, mate. They'll see it. Don't worry.
It's about the size, like half the size of your hand, and I'm not even exaggerating. And it is rock hard. And they've decided for some reason it's a good decision because, again, they've forgotten kickers and punters exist. And we don't get given the football, so they don't tell us this or give us the footballs till the day before game one. So they give us 3 footballs and they say, hey, here's the new footballs. We're going to have to break them in each game. So just like tell us how they feel. What are we going to have to do to them? We're like, sure. I kicked the first one. And for people that haven't kicked an NFL football, when you kick the laces of the ball, it kind of hurts a little bit. It would be similar-ish to an AFL football, but not quite. Like it's at times about 5. Like it's not painful, but it's definitely not comfortable. But the whole point is you're not supposed to kick the laces. And I don't think I've kicked the laces really. Like it's hard to do it. You'd have to spin the ball around. So I'm like, man, I kicked the laces. All right, well, I'll do it again, and kicked. And I was like, well, these laces are really hard, but I guess we'll work them in here. And I kicked the third one, and I honestly thought I'd broken my foot. And I was like, what's going on here? I took the ball over to the GM and I said, hey, what's going on with these footballs? Like, they're just really, really hard. And he said, oh, yeah, they put a chip in them. I said, okay, but how are we supposed to punt a football or kick a football if it feels like kicking a brick? Because the chip would move around in the ball. So every time you compressed it, it would just hit your foot. Like there was no avoiding it. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So I stopped kicking, obviously, and then they're like, well, we're not taking them out. And so for the first game, which is just my luck, we were terrible, and I had 9 punts, and I could not barely walk the next day. Like it was actually like you'd kick your foot into the corner of a table every single time. And you're obviously swinging at full speed too. So by the 9th swing, I was so tentative. Like it was just so hard to like mentally just close your eyes and just hope this didn't hurt. Although you were kidding yourself because it was going to kill your foot.
It's going to hurt.
It was so purple the next day. One of the kickers had to withdraw from the league because he had split so many like blood vessels in his foot. His foot just blew up. Like it was a disaster of a thing. Pat, for one of the good things he does do, got on and said on his show, hey, this is a disgrace. Like, you can't do this. And because Pat's Pat, they got rid of it pretty quick. But then for the guys that had to punt a little bit, for the next 3 weeks, your foot's still bruised. Like, that don't go away straight away. So, you're struggling and trying to kick, and we weren't winning games, and it sucked. And then after about week 4, I reckon I started getting good feeling back in the foot and started going pretty well. I thought I had really good stats for the last 6 weeks of the season. Really, really good stats. And we started running some trick plays on offense, which I'd never done. On special teams, because our offense sucks so bad. And that was really fun. Really, really fun. So I was glad kind of that we weren't winning games because I got to do the little flip over the head field goal. I got to do the throw on punt, which was cool. First time I'd ever completed a pass. And now I've got the career QBR rating of 118.8, which is, I'm pretty sure, higher than Brady. Not to brag, but I'm pretty sure.
It definitely is. Rodgers, Mahomes, higher than all of them.
Yeah, probably higher than all of them. So I'm pretty happy with that one. So that was really cool. And again, cool experience. I guess somewhat unique and cool to say you got drafted in the first it's not the first, but the first new USFL draft. So played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Pittsburgh Maulers. We were purple and orange. We looked terrible, and everyone would laugh at our uniforms, and they've changed them this year to black and yellow like the Steelers. So that was kind of unique. Got to keep the jersey and all that kind of stuff. And so probably one of very few people that own a Pittsburgh Mauler jersey or helmet that's purple and orange now. And they made the specialist captain. So I'm one of even fewer people that has been captain of the Pittsburgh Bulls, which is pretty funny that they made us captains. But it was a great time, and I lost my coin toss, so I hated it.
And then you have to punt a ball with a broken foot. It's gross.
Yeah. So, then that season got done, and it was great fun. I was hoping for another opportunity, and didn't work out, but got the advice, basically, which is another great tale. Got the advice to pull out of the 2-year contract with the USFL and give it a shot at the XFL because they were going to pay more money. So I decided to do that, only to find out later that the XFL wasn't going to take internationals for the first 2 years. So that was pointless to try that. So that kind of hurt a little bit. But that's just the interesting tale that seems to continue on.
Yeah, you've had an absolute roller coaster, mate. There's been so many highs and so many lows. Just even this episode.
Yeah, no, right? It has, and it's been so. And like I said, it's been so fun. Like I'm so happy. I'm so happy for, like, you know, you go back to all the things in your life that have happened, and you think at the time it sucks, and I still like have to remind myself that the things that have sucked the most have led to the best things, like getting cut from basketball, like not making that team. I thought it was ridiculous at the time. Well, that makes me play football. Then, you know, one of my mates and like having some problems with my parents and stuff like that at 18, like you think that sucks and you just don't think it's worthwhile. And then that leads to you, well, okay, maybe I need to do more with my life. So you put your head down and you play better football, and then you get cut by Freo and you're like, well, you know, fuck you, Ross, and the rest of yous, and it's the worst day of your life. But then it leads to punting, and then, you know, you win punting and you win an award for punting, and you get to go play in the SEC football, and then you miss out on the NFL draft, and then it leads to coaching and hopefully a coaching career. So yeah, every time something negative happens, as with everyone, you got to realize that there's some positives coming, as much as it sucks at the time, and you got to enjoy the lows because they make the highs very, 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 very rewarding.
We've spoken about the coaching a fair bit. So what's your actual role at Murray State, and like how'd you get there, and what's the plan moving forward?
Yeah, so my special teams coordinator at the University of Kentucky is now the head coach here at Murray State. Was hoping to get a spot with Kentucky, although they're very hard to come by. Don't have any coaching experience. I don't know why I thought I was going to get that, but just thought maybe they'll sneak one of the boys in, but didn't work out. But Coach Hood was like very nice enough to bring me on. Kind of doing a unique role that no schools have to a certain extent of, I'm obviously able to coach punters, kickers, and snappers and work with special teams as a GA, which is a graduate assistant. So I have to study at the same time, I'm hoping that I'll get another gig before I have to finish the master's degree, but if I have to stick at it, it's not a terrible bonus.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically doing special teams and having, like I said, there's not a whole lot of guys that coach or are able to coach all three. Since I've been over here, I've done a lot of work learning how to coach kickers and kicking and then learning how to coach snappers as well. So it's kind of cool. I'm in the GA spot. You don't really get a lot of hands-on with players. Well, he's been nice enough to let me run the specialist room with all those guys and kind of getting my first little mini introduction to, you know, being in charge of a few guys and having to control that room. And there's so much that goes into it, and there's no manuscript of like, or a guy over the top of you going, hey, this is how you do it, or this is what should be done. I'm just playing it by ear and seeing how it goes. So it's really, really fun. And I'm hoping that it will eventuate into, you know, a big time job at a big school. And that's what I want to do. I want to be a special teams coordinator in an SEC school, hopefully Kentucky, if they bring me back at some stage, and really bring a unique aspect of being able to coach the specialists, which, I mean, when I went to Kentucky, and this is not as in like they tried to, no one even tried to coach me how to punt. No one tried to coach the kickers. No one tried to coach the snappers. It's just fend for yourself and see how good you are. And even to the point where we really didn't even have a weights program. And that's not because Kentucky's unprofessional. It's just, they just don't know how to treat specialists over here because we're just the weird guys in the corner that no one talks to. Although I've tried to change that as much as I can. My claim to fame is going to be that I was the guy that got to take Will Levis out on his official visit at Kentucky and go have a few beers with him. So that was pretty cool. I convinced him to come to the Great Big Blue. So he owes me half his contract, I reckon.
At least.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's another cool little thing. So I hope he goes well. But yeah, just hoping to bring that. I want to be a special teams coordinator. I'd love to keep moving up in the coaching ranks, but it's early days, and Murray, Kentucky don't have a whole lot of things to do here, so it's given me plenty of time to get stuck into the coaching.
Nah, beautiful. We've got one final question for you, mate, but just want to say thanks for you've been so generous with your time, especially being late and having to get up at like ridiculous hour o'clock. It's the resume is better than what your modest self gave yourself credit for, mate. So really just do appreciate your time and giving us so much.
Yeah, no problems at all. It's good to be able to do these sometimes because I don't get to talk to a lot of people back home, and maybe I'm kidding myself, but some of them jump on and listen and then send me a message and like, oh, that's cool. You didn't bother to tell us that happened. So I appreciate doing this sometimes because instead of making 50 calls, you can just do one show and tick them all off and just send them the link and say, hey, if you want to know what's going on, I don't really want to talk to you, just watch this. So, and I'm putting off doing homework at the moment. So as long as you want to keep talking, I'm happy.
Brilliant. Well, we have to come up with a few more questions then. The last one I do have for you is I don't know if you heard the last few days that Bill Belichick, he gave a response to the reporters when they said, what can you give to the New England Patriots fans about, a bit of hope about this year? And he said, look at the last 25 years that I've been coached. That should be hope enough, I think. So, Coach Duffy, I want you to put your hat on. What's the message for the Murray State fans when they're thinking about football this year?
Oh, well, unfortunately, sometimes I don't think you'll get a whole lot of Murray fans. We haven't been great recently, but in all honesty, we're getting better. We got the best recruiting class we've ever had. So, I mean, how could you not be excited about that? They've brought in a great special teams graduate assistant, which is going to help with the kicking a whole lot. We might put some through the uprights this year if we can ever get the ball down there. But it's going to be an interesting year. We're actually just moved conference and are going to play North Dakota State, which is probably the only small school that Australians might know because Christian Watson and it's Christian Watson, right? I said that right.
Oh, yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Carson Wentz, Trey Lance, that's a small-ass school, but that is a very good football school, and we're going up against them, South Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota. We're going to have our hands full, but they don't know what's coming either because they ain't played Murray State, the Races. So the Races are coming to get it. We're pretty excited. We're going through spring ball at the moment. It's pretty awesome and fun-packed at the moment. Hopefully we can win a few games because the guys are working really hard and the coaches are awesome to be around. And we're sick of people talking about Ja Morant because Ja Morant came from Murray State. And I've gone from one basketball school to another. I need to get out of the basketball schools and get to a football school. So we better start winning some games.
It seems that when you leave the basketball schools, though, they are football schools. So I reckon Murray State's going to be pretty happy about that.
Well, that was their tactic in bringing me in. They knew when they brought me in first year, Kentucky, we win a Citrus Bowl. We win the most games ever in school history. Well, Murray State, that can only happen, right?
That's it.
Call it the Duffy effect. Yeah.
It's a tactic that I bring in where you don't kick the ball into people's asses, and it seems to work quite well.
It's a very good play. It's too good. Smart. But awesome, mate. We'll definitely keep our eyes across Murray State and yourself, and just really do appreciate your time that you've given us this afternoon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Anyone that wants to jump on the Races bandwagon, get in early. It will be pretty good this year. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Awesome, mate. We'll speak to you soon, and we'll keep on top of you anyway.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Go on.